Welcome to part one of the CLEP training for externship placements. It's important to understand the basics of externships, and that includes the theory behind them, as well as the essential teaching elements. Here's our agenda for this first half of the externship placement training. We'll start with externship basics, including revised rule 138A, why host an extern, and the players and their roles. Then we'll spend just a little time on adult learning theory, specifically the plan, do, reflect model. So we start with the most basic question. What exactly is an externship? Externships do vary, but in all of their forms, they should include opportunities for students to apprentice in settings outside of the law school and with the guidance of both a law professor and either a supervising attorney or judge. Let's take a minute to look at what the Supreme Court said via revised rule 138A. The rule reads, externship is part of the clinical legal education program if A, it allows students to engage in legal work for the marginalized sectors or for the promotion of social justice and public interest, and B, it is undertaken with any of the following. 1. The courts, the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, government offices, and 2. Law school recognized non-governmental organizations. So that tells us who the students should be helping, the marginalized. It tells us a bit about what they should be doing, promoting social justice and public interest, and it even tells us where they should be doing it. But it leaves a lot of questions about how an externship program actually works. For some insight, let's move on to a slightly broader question. What is clinical legal education? Again, there can be some real variability here, but all answers should touch on hands-on, practical learning as part of the law school curriculum. Here's how the Supreme Court defined the clinical legal education program in revised rule 138A. Clinical legal education program is an experiential, interactive, and reflective credit-earning teaching course with the objectives of providing law students with practical knowledge, skills, and values necessary for the application of the law, delivery of legal services, and promotion of social justice and public interest, especially to the marginalized, while inculcating in the students the values of ethical lawyering and public service. It consists of learning activities covered by this rule undertaken in either a 1. Legal clinic or a 2. Externship, which shall incorporate the teaching of legal theory and doctrines, practical skills, as well as legal ethics. Law schools across the country are now working to create or expand clinical programs, including externships. They are doing this because of the new Supreme Court rule, but also because implementation will, 1. Help ensure access to justice of the marginalized sectors, 2. Enhance learning opportunities for law students, 3. Instill in law students the value of the legal professional social responsibility, and 4. Prepare law students for the practice of law and produce practice-ready lawyers. This is exciting stuff, with the potential to dramatically improve legal education and access to justice. You get to be part of that, and I hope that interests you. But I also know lawyers are really busy. Most of us already work too many hours and face tasks that are emotionally draining. So what's in this for you? As already covered, becoming a supervisor for an externship student really can make you a part of improving society. That's big. But there are smaller, and let's be honest, more personal, even selfish reasons to consider hosting an extern. For starters, you get free help. Yes, the average student will take some time to get up to speed on the work you do, and it's likely that many tasks will take them longer to do than it would take you. But over and over again, in nearly every externship we have supervised, and we've been doing this for quite a while, we see students produce valuable work product and contribute in meaningful ways to their externship placements. Students can help manage heavy caseloads. They can tackle research projects or important updates that you've been meaning to get to for months or even years. They can help get your work done. Beyond that, students bring enthusiasm and energy. So, a task for you: please share a memory of when you were a new lawyer, maybe something from your very first legal job that you remember fondly. Were you excited about a particular kind of work? Did you have a particularly good mentor? Do you remember the first time you met with a client or argued in court? Maybe a time you felt like you were really helping someone. Please share your memory here and think about how you might share it with a student and encourage their enthusiasm for this work that is brand new to them. I look forward to reading your responses and discussing them during our synchronous gathering, since one of the things our supervising attorneys and judges frequently report is how much value they get from seeing their work through new eyes. They report being reinvigorated for the work they do and being reminded of what a privilege it is to practice law. Energy and enthusiasm can be significant gifts. By hosting an extern, you also get a chance to shape the future of your profession. Surely you have ideas about how your work should be done. This is your chance to train your future colleagues and to potentially increase the talent pool when it comes time in the future for your office or similar offices to hire new attorneys. The vast majority of placements we work with come back to us again and again to host students, and they are disappointed when we don't have a student available to place with them. Good externship programs help students, but they also help practicing lawyers and judges. So, how do we make all of this good stuff happen? Who's involved and what role does each person play? That's our next major topic, and to discuss it, I'm going to turn things over to my colleagues, Professor Bernstein and Professor Kolorin.
There are 3 essential people for each externship. Most of you listening right now are practicing lawyers or judges who already host law students as externs or are considering doing so. So you will fulfill the role of supervising attorney or judge. That's unquestionably an important role, but you're not in this alone. You're part of a team with the law professor and the law student. So I'm going to talk about all 3 roles. Let's start with the student, since they are at the core of this experience. Of course, this externship is the student's learning experience. They will only get out of it what they put into it. The student must dedicate time to both the in-office or in-court experience and to the companion course they will be taking at their law school. We know from experience that student externs regularly become valuable members of the team at the place where they are externing, and they regularly produce valuable work product. Still, they are students, and their first job is learning. As externships become more common in the Philippines, a culture will develop where students are actively engaged in their learning, asking questions, seeking out work, and incorporating feedback. Behind the scenes from your vantage point, but nonetheless actively encouraging students to develop their skills, is the externship professor. One of the professor's first jobs is to help all participants in the externship process to understand the program and their roles. So you will likely communicate with them at least once before a student joins your office or court. Then the externship professor works with the student during the semester to draft the student's learning plan, which we'll talk about more in a few minutes. The professor communicates with the supervisor to make certain the student is on track to accomplish their goals, and they intervene in the rare situation in which faculty intervention is necessary. It is not the professor's responsibility to oversee the substance of the legal work assigned by the supervising attorney or judge. Instead, the professor is focused on the student's development as a professional and to stay informed and involved through review of and response to the student's journals, participation in the course component of the externship, communication with the supervisor, and possibly by visiting the student on site. Generally, externship professors are most successful when they are least visible to the supervisor. Whenever possible, the professor is coaching the student to solve their own challenges in the workplace.
Now, let's talk about your role as the supervising attorney or judge. Good supervisors should be experienced in their chosen specialty, respected by the legal community, and interested in the never-ending process of improving the profession. Those are important qualifications, and you should feel proud to be at this training. Your presence here reflects either the respect others have for you and your work, or your own commitment to furthering your skills and value to your community. Still, we know it can be challenging to try something new, and if you haven't hosted an extern before, you might be a little nervous about it. So please share with us. What concerns do you have about hosting an extern? As a supervisor, you should plan to involve students in all aspects of your work. That means that rather than simply completing research and writing assignments, students are included in all aspects of practice. When a research or writing project is assigned, you explain the context within which the project is being completed. If meetings are held which concern ongoing projects, such as staff meetings or conference calls, the student should be involved. If meetings with clients are scheduled, then the student should, if client permission can be obtained, be invited to attend. If you preside over a hearing, even something as simple as a status conference, invite the student to have a brief discussion of the case, the parties, your observations, if you're able to share them, and theirs. If your workplace offers an opportunity to attend a training event offsite, the student should be invited when appropriate. Whenever possible, students should be included in court appearances and pretrial discovery. If a student has done work on a case, then the student should hopefully see as many aspects of that case as possible. While the official supervising attorney or judge is generally not the only lawyer who gives assignments and projects to the student, they are the person responsible for making certain that the student is given a broad variety of assignments, that those assignments are tailored to help the student achieve the student's goals, that the student receives descriptive, prescriptive, and timely feedback on work performed, and that the student has an opportunity to reflect on the entire experience. Please take a moment to share any ideas you have for how you might encourage your externs to reflect on their experiences. So please know that this whole externship thing is a team effort. It is you, the supervisor, plus the student and the professor. Together, you can make great things happen for your student. I'm now going to turn the presentation back over to Professor Locker to address that final piece of part 1.
So you might remember from the agenda that our final topic today is experiential learning, and more specifically, adult learning theory. As a supervisor, you don't need to know all of the details of what is happening in the law school course, but you will be made aware of some elements as they overlap with the work the student is doing in your office or court. Experiential education recognizes a continuum of planning, performance, feedback, reflection, and evaluation of progress toward performance goals. This is often referred to in shorthand as the plan, do, reflect model. Most law schools will develop their externship courses to reflect this approach through the development and application of a learning plan. Before a semester begins, each student will draft a learning plan following a format designed for the externship. This plan provides the basis for planning, feedback on, and evaluation of the semester's work. Each student reviews their plan with the externship professor and their supervising attorney or judge near the beginning of the semester. When you take on an extern, you should plan for a meeting with that student during the very first week with your office. Hopefully, they come prepared with some sort of learning plan that the two of you can discuss. But if not, use the time to ask them about their goals for the semester and what steps they think they'll need to take to accomplish those goals. It's then your job to help the student adjust their goals to the reality of your office or court environment. You're the expert on what actually happens in your place of work, so help the student understand that and modify their goals to fit the reality of the office. Ideally, there is a lot of communication between you and the student, but at a minimum, the two of you should meet to formally review progress on the learning plan at least once during the semester. Many of the law schools will encourage students to complete a self-evaluation that they'll share with you. But if that doesn't happen, you can still encourage the student to assess their own progress and help them with the reflection element of learning. Finally, make sure you are providing feedback to students. The most useful feedback is regular and constructive. Look for positive things you can point out, But don't be afraid to also tell students where they have gone astray. Help them understand what you would like to see done differently on their next assignment. We've appreciated that you've made it through all of part 1, and we hope some of what we've shared is not just helpful but exciting. We believe firmly that the work we do is important. It's important to our students, but also to their future clients and to our societies. We are training the next generation of advocates. The work we do helps provide access to justice. What you do is immensely important. We're so glad to be here working alongside you. When you join us for the second part of the training, we'll focus on how to provide effective or even excellent supervision for law students. As a quick reminder, we have an email address where you can send your questions before we meet. I look forward to talking with you soon.